Well, hello, YouTubers and computer nerds. Welcome back to episode 5. I up to 5 episodes on this already. Of me trying to get this old Teletek Systemaster S-100 single board computer up and running again. And there has been some progress since the end of episode 4. First off, I have a fan mounted here, which blows across the heat sink for the voltage regulator on the board, because this was just getting wicked hot. I mean, too hot to touch. It's just running way too hot. And the manual does say it needs forced air ventilation. So it blows across that. It blows across some of the other chips too, but the other chips really just barely even get warm. It's the regulator that really needed the cooling. And I'm taking power from my 5-volt supply I've built over here with the 7805 regulator, which now has a heat sink on it, even though the only load on it is this little fan, which is not really loading it much. It's just like 100 milliamps or something for that fan. Also, I did what I said I was going to do. I've added a reset switch right here, which is wired into pin 75 of the S-100 connector. So, and I tested it, it works. When I press the reset button, the reset line on the Z80 goes low. So, and various things happen when I'm probing around with the oscilloscope. So, the reset line works. Also, let me turn it on. Got some indicator lights now. One for each voltage, and I kind of went with LEDs the same color as the wiring I'm using for the different voltages. So orange for 8 volts, which is on an orange wire, red for 5 volts, which is on a red wire, green for minus 16, which is on a green wire, and yellow for plus 16, which is on a yellow wire. It's a long way from a panel full of blinking lights like on the old school S-100 systems, but it's a start, and it's a really easy visual troubleshooting aid. If something's not working, I can look at this at a glance and I can see I've got all 4 of my voltages. So I don't have to worry about, you know, something has dropped out, which is why I'm having trouble. No, everything's working. So there's been a little bit of progress there. I won't show you the other side of this board because I am way out of practice with soldering. It's ugly, but it works. So, the next step is to try and get this thing talking. So, this is what I'm working on now. Let me move the camera over here so you can see a little better. I've got a USB to RS-232 dongle there installed on my laptop. I've got it wired into serial port A of the Systemaster, which according to my manual is the one I need to be talking to. So serial port A. I've got it wired in. My best guess of how the wiring goes, I'm pretty sure it needs to be wired in like a null modem, because this is DCE, this is DCE, so there should be a null modem in there. Okay, so I've got PuTTY up and running over here on the laptop, and I have it set for, I gotta move that wind chime, don't I, because I keep hitting it with my head. I have it set for, and I don't know if that's showing up. When I turn it on, I get a little bit of a garbage thing come over. Let me turn it off and back on again. Yeah, look at that. I got a couple characters that time. Couple garbage characters coming over. So there's something coming out that port. That's good. So anyway, I have this set, according to the manual, it wants 8 data bits, 2 stop bits, no parity, and any common baud rate between, what was it, like 45 and 19,000 something it can handle. I've got it set, I think, to 4800 now. And it's supposed to automatically detect the baud rate. And after you hit enter a few times, or carriage return. I hope this is sending a carriage return when I do this, but I'm not seeing. It says it could take up to 8 carriage returns before it recognizes the baud rate, but I'm not seeing anything here. Let me look at the settings here. Yeah, so 4800, 82. Let me try DSR, DTR. It also says in the manual it needs all the handshaking lines. So maybe it needs DSR, DTR flow control. Let's try that. Let me reset the Systemaster. Okay. And we get nothing. Okay. Well, I'm going to play around with it a little bit. I'll change some things around, some baud rates, the flow control. I may even try tinkering with the wiring over here and see if that'll get us communicating. But you don't have to watch over my shoulder while I do all that, because it's probably going to take a little while. But let me see if I can get this thing talking. And I'll be back when I have something to report. Okay, it's been a while. An hour and a half, something like that. I've been messing around with this thing. It's a good thing I didn't make you watch that, because there were a lot of words involved that that YouTube does not like in its videos. Basically, I can't get anything out of this. And the observant among you may notice that I am now connected to port B over here. I've tried both ports, and the manual that I downloaded before I first bought this thing says I need to be on port A. Well, I tried port B out of desperation, and I'm not really getting anywhere with it either. But I got online and was looking around, and I found another version of this manual. As far as I can tell, it's for the same board. It even comes out the same year. But it says completely different things than what this manual does. Mainly it says I should be on port B, not port A, for talking to it with a terminal. But still, I can't get port B to work either. But more importantly, this other manual, this second one I found, goes into a little more in-depth on things. And it has a little troubleshooting guide. And under troubleshooting it says, once the Systemaster board has been plugged into your mainframe, a disk drive cable attached to the 50-pin connector on the board, and the system console cable connected, then the typical boot procedure should be as follows. Insert the Systemaster CPM disk supplied by Teletek into drive A and reset the system. A disk access should take place. The system will then wait for you to enter a series of carriage returns. Up to 8 may be required, so that the baud rate of your console device can be determined. This procedure can be bypassed by choosing the static option for SIOB. Again, it's saying I need to have the terminal on SIOB when running the consys.com utility. Of course, I got to boot it up and be able to talk to it before I can run that utility. So, once the console port speed has been successfully determined, a sign-on message will appear on your console, followed by a CPM prompt. Okay, this explains a lot. It also jives with what I saw in a forum post a while back, where a fellow who has one of these booted it up and talked about the boot up sequence. And he said nothing appeared on his screen until the first thing to appear on the screen was the CPM splash message and prompt. Nothing appeared before that. So I'm thinking it's working as designed. It's just that the first thing that has to happen is it's got to read from the disk drive. Well, I don't have a disk drive attached to it, and I don't have a boot disk for it, although I do have an image of the boot disk. I've just got to figure out how to attach a disk drive to this, either an actual disk drive or a floppy drive emulator. And I go back and forth on which I want to do. Either way, it's probably going to be a bit of a pain to get this working because I've got a 50-pin connector over here. And modern drives use a 34, so I'm going to have to I'm going to have to shift some lines around somehow and figure out how to do that, figure out which lines carry through and how they cross over and whatnot. And have you looked at the prices of 5 1/4 inch floppy drives these days? My God, they're selling like they're genuine antiques. They're very expensive. So I don't know. I'm leaning towards an emulator, although having an actual floppy drive would be cool for real retro computing. So I'll have to give some serious thought about the next steps here about trying to interface a floppy to this thing. And of course, just interfacing the drive to it doesn't do me any good. I still got to figure out how to make a boot disk from the image I have. None of the computers I own have floppy drives. I do have a USB to 3.5 inch drive somewhere for some old software I was working with a few years back for a client of mine. I can dig that up, but everything I read tells me interfacing 3.5 inch floppies to these old computers is pretty much impossible. The best you can do is the 5 1/4. I don't quite understand the problem well enough to know why it's impossible, so I'm probably not going to be the one who's going to be making it possible. So, yeah. Goodness, getting this up and running is going to be difficult. We're back to buyer's remorse a little bit. But maybe I can make it work with an emulator. That's a possibility. Of course, if I'm going to get serious about this retro computing thing, I may need to get a computer or two that actually has a floppy drive in it. So that's another possibility. And then I can use it to make the boot disk image. So, got to give it some thought. Yeah, the whole two manuals thing is weird. I don't really know which one to trust. Although I'm believing the new one I've downloaded a little more than the first one I downloaded. It makes a little more sense. And, bonus, it has schematics for the board in it. Okay, that is a big bonus. So the schematics are going to be great. That will help with further troubleshooting. Okay, so next step is somehow hook up either a floppy drive or a floppy drive emulator to this thing and figure out how to make a boot disk from the image I have. Can't promise that's going to be quick. The next episode may be a ways out. Okay? But hey, we're slowly making progress. We're certainly a lot further along than when I first got the thing. So, making progress. Anybody who has any experience hooking floppy drives up to these old computers, especially the emulators, the floppy drive emulators up to these old computers with the 50-pin connector on them, feel free to leave me any advice in the comments. I'm open to any advice because I can tell this is going to be difficult. From what I read in the forums, everybody has problems with this. It's not easy. So, if you have experience with this, if you have any helpful advice to give, I'm all ears. Until then, I guess we're going to wrap up this episode. A little bit of progress, but not as much as I'd hoped. It is possible, though, that the thing is actually working the way it's designed to. It's working perfectly well. It's just I'm not getting anything out of it at this point because it's looking for it's looking for a disk drive and a boot disk. So hopefully I won't go through all the trouble of hooking up a disk drive and making a boot disk image for it, and it still doesn't boot. But you know what? It's interesting anyway. It's the sort of thing I like to do. All right, well, thanks for watching. Give the video a thumbs up, give it a like if you found it at all interesting, educational, killed a little time, whatever. And subscribe to see future videos and press the little bell icon so you'll be notified when they come out, because sooner or later there'll be another video coming out once I get this thing hooked up to some kind of disk drive. You know, good, bad, or indifferent, that video will be coming. And thanks again for watching. Have a good one. Bye.